I'm gonna climb a tree.
Watch out.
Ah!
Hi there. Welcome to the Forbidden Limb Podcast. I'm your host, Richard New, and I'm here as always with Jeremy Commander and Brian Hink. We're going to continue with part 2 from last week of when to move from print on demand to manufacture. So we're going to just go right into where we were last time.
So I have some examples here of some things that aren't quite right. You know, so like if you want to maybe hold those up to the camera. So that's one. It's from Robo Rally, actually. I mean, it's an older
miscut
game.
components.
Yeah,
where
so
the margin is not the same all around.
They're not
We'll get some
aligned
good pictures
quite right.
of these for the video.
Yeah, but then for the listeners, yeah, it's just the alignment is off on these cardboard
There's
chipboard pieces.
Just for the audio listeners, there's a triangle piece. There's a triangle printing in a triangle piece, and the triangle is offset on at least one of those pieces.
A lot of them, yeah. It's,
or if you're
it's
about
pretty
trading
bad.
cards where the card is like right up at the edge, or it's
Right.
kind of crooked. We've got
I've
some
seen
magic
that
cards
before.
examples.
Yeah, here's
here.
some magic cards too. So you can see like this left edge is much smaller than this right edge, and this is a revised card. So I kind of looked at. I took a look at. I played Magic for years and years now, so I kind of looked at. Like here's a 9th edition, which looks maybe a little better, but there's still some issues.
Sure.
I think this is Homelands, which is also has some pretty big issues with it there. But some of the newer ones, it seems like there are still some kind of some printing issues. And there's we talk about like bleed lines, like when you say what this.
So let's talk about what a bleed line is.
Yeah.
That's important because this is something I had to do a lot of fun with to do the print on demand manufacture, and it's even more important for Pass the Paint and for other things I've done print on demand. And it's even more important if you're going to use a larger manufacturer is that when they run the cards through their press and on sheets and then cut them up, there's a certain margin for error, and that's your bleed. So in general, the print on demand guys, they give you a template. And they say, hey, you can't have writing or art beyond a certain level. You have to leave us this much margin, or all the way around the edge, for it to shift a little bit, or when we cut it, there's some margin for error. And then this zone, a little further in, yeah, you can have stuff, but it shouldn't be words, because they still might be hard to read. And so they may have these 1 or 2 zones where you shouldn't have any art, or the art should be all one solid color. So you see the magic cards in black around the edge, or Pass the Paint, I have white, so you can't really tell where the edge is, and if it gets a little miscut, it kind of covers that up.
Yeah, so like if you were to do like let's take a magic card. So if what you do is we'll pretend that the bleed line is this edge here. So this is the inner edge of a magic card.
Yep.
And then the very edge of the card would be like how far you would do the art for the card. So if there was art that went all the way to the edge, you want to make sure to have art all the way to the very edge of this card, even though you're specifying that you want it to be cut to this middle edge of the magic card.
Or you have the art overflow. So I want to grab this pandemic card as an example. When notice the green little pattern in the background goes all the way to the edge of the card. And I bet when they design this pattern actually extends out another 1/4 inch.
Yep.
And so even when it's cut a little bit off, you never see the edge of it. It's actually a little wider than it should be in order to accommodate that cut and that bleed.
Which is actually why I wouldn't recommend someone do a design kind of like the magic cards here, where there's hard edges up to the side, because it's so
more obvious.
when you do make a mistake. But like these pandemic cards, it's just a pattern that goes up to the edge. So if you're off, nobody's even going to know. Not going to know that this is off.
And you notice we have Generation 1 and Generation 2 of Pandemic. Yeah. Generation 1 has a white border all around for the bleed, and then if the card's miscut, it's more obvious it's been miscut or misaligned in that particular print run. Or the Generation 2 ones, they don't have that border around. Instead, they're using this little more clever graphic design to better hide any cuts in the cards.
So if you're still having a hard time imagining this for the audio viewers, think of the chipboard.
Yes.
If you get a game with chipboard, a lot of times when you punch it out, you will still see a little bit of that picture on the outside of the chipboard.
Because that's a good example.
That's sort of what we're talking about.
Yep, exactly.
So we will see that like the artwork actually went past where I punched these tokens out, and they're still there, and color, a little bit extra, like a little 1/4 inch there. So even if it gets misaligned a little bit, the token will still look good.
So if you have, a new publisher, someone who just did a Kickstarter campaign, and you want to now figure out how to manufacture this thing, that's one thing that's important to understand. These bleed lines, when you get the art specifications from each manufacturer, when you're trying to decide which one to use, that's something you are going to have to do a little research there. You're going to have to understand that, so you know how to design your cards, or the components in your game so that they fit the templates, It's going to be, if you do it in one format, you might have to switch it over to a completely different format to support the.
I've had to do that before.
The templates. Yeah,
I had to redo all my templates for Pass the Paint twice for different print-on-demand manufacturers or different things I was doing.
So it's really good to know who you're going to use as a manufacturer before you actually do all the art for your game.
How good are they about helping you out with that? I imagine for the bigger manufacturers, it's sort of like, well, when you're jumping in the big pool, you better know how to swim.
That's like one really awesome thing about Panda. Panda is so good about holding your hand through the entire process. Any questions you have, they're going to get you an answer. They're going to help you out. However, they take a long time to respond. I'm going to be honest about that. They have a lot of people.
They've grown so much.
They are growing
They're hiring a ton of people right now, account managers.
Yep.
So someone on the other end who Brian talks to, because the people value their service so much, they're just exploding. I've seen Panda grow in just the past couple of years in the board industry like crazy. As that live person now walking through the process is very valuable. People want to pay for that.
And I imagine it would take a long time if someone's checking over your work and making sure. If they call you up and say, "Hey, I was looking over this. This is not going to work as well as you think it's going to." Okay.
And there are some other ones, I don't really want to throw anyone under the bus, but there are some others I've worked with that have not been as good about that. And that's something where, I can get a discount on, going straight to a manufacturer in China. But if I don't know exactly what I'm doing and I have questions, there's going to be a language barrier there probably. And they probably won't be as good as someone like Panda about helping me through that process. So that was something.
Or they'll just tell you what you want to hear because they want your business.
That too.
Oh yes, we fixed that. Oh no problem. Oh
It'll
yeah,
look great.
It'll be
Trust
great.
us.
It'll be great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Give us your money, and then then you never know.
I'm going to skip away from games for just a second. I think this is a great story. When they were doing the original Star Trek, in the first pilot, there is an Orion slave girl that dances in one scene. If you don't know the show, they're green. And they did these photo tests with the woman wearing the green makeup, and they'd send them off to be developed because they wanted to make sure this green makeup would look good on color television. It really hadn't been done so much before.
Right.
And they kept getting the pictures back, and she was just this bright pink, like it just looked like a person with maybe a weird suntan or something like that. And they kept trying to take pictures and change the paint up and stuff like that. Kept sending them back. They kept getting it. So they said, let's go talk to the guy that's developing these pictures and figure out, is there something that we can do or something he can do to help us out with this? And they go down there and they're like, we're trying to make this woman green. You're trying to make her green? Oh, I've been working so hard making her pink this whole time. I thought you had the worst cameraman ever.
That's awesome.
So if you're not talking to the people that are,
the print guy was making a correction on their behalf.
Right.
It might be safer for a manufacturer to just say, oh, I guess they know what they're doing, and they, they give you back your 1,500 copies, and every one of them has the same mistake on them because they didn't stand up and say, hey, are you sure about that?
Yeah, and that's a good transition too into the kind of first and second edition of Pandemic that we have here. I know when I first got Pandemic forever ago, I had trouble with the colors because here's an example of the researcher who is a very, very light, very light tan on the researcher card, and then the component looks pretty much black. So it was really hard to know that this token in the game represents the researcher. And even the tan color could match the orange color of the medic here.
Right. Even the cards look very similar. We'll put another picture of this up for the video.
Yeah. So and then we have
I had the same problem. I had the first edition of Pandemic as well, and we were like, wait, what's your guy? What color are you? Every game was like, I can't quite tell. Some of them were obvious, and there was 2 or 3 that were not that obvious.
We had that same problem with the Lords of Waterdeep. There was the green guy that I think looked...
The tokens are clearly one color, but the little play mat that goes with it
looked yellow, I think.
Yeah, and so I actually took a paint pen and drew on it so I could tell which color was which. And especially because there's a lot of male gamers, right? Board gamers, lots of guys, and guys up to 30% of males have some degree of less color sensitivity, and as much as 5% plus maybe flat out color blind. So if you are not getting the colors very well organized or putting a texture behind them, then it gets much more difficult for those players to distinguish things in your game.
As a little aside, the most common color blindness is red-green.
Yep. Right.
And you have suggested before to not to pick one of those colors and eliminate it from your game.
Correct.
So
I have a lot of
Yeah,
games I'm
makes
building now that don't have red or don't have green. Now I have a local guy who's a lot of playtesting for me who loves green. So I generally put green in because he's going to play
and I love red, so like that is my color to play.
But people ask me all the time, how come there's no red player in this game?
Yeah.
I can see that.
It's one of those kind of balances that you have to be like, do you want to try to make this easier for colorblind players or those who like green, or those who like red? It's a tough call. So
color accuracy between your pawns,
that's
and your cardboard token. This is a big deal,
but it's so hard to do.
It is
because you make a
different paint,
image,
right?
Yeah.
Paint and ink. So this is painted, and this is ink. And if your print manufacturer doesn't really know what they're doing that well, they're like, "Oh, it's close enough." People will be able to tell, and then you may not be able to tell because they didn't use the same ink and paint. There's two different components.
So this is gonna kind of come down to one of my key pieces of advice, and one of them is just to get samples of everything. So you might not even think that this might be an issue, but you should force them to give you samples, your manufacturer, and they're going to probably drag their feet because it's really hard to do, possibly expensive. You might have to mail something, a sample box from China.
Yep.
But a good manufacturer will give you that. They'll give you a sample that's absolutely as close as possible to the real thing, because they don't want you to come back later and say, oh, hey, this color is off, go give me replacements or do another print run for me. And, they want you to have, what you asked for as well. So ask for samples is one of the
Actually, a good print manufacturer, a bigger manufacturer, beyond print on demand. So print on demand, I just order a copy. I order one copy after I've done my files in the print on demand service, and then I look at it. I just order one copy, and I pay for it, and that's my proof.
Yep.
If I'm doing a larger manufacturer, I should actually get 3 samples. I should get what's called the white sample, and it's all the components non-printed. So that they say, oh yeah, we make cards, we make pawns, whatever. And so they send me a copy of everything in
just
white, blank.
Yep.
So I can see, is it the right size? Is the cut good? Is the material good?
Texture
is the texture right now? I'm paying for the linen texture. I'm actually getting the
thickness. Does it fit in the box exactly? A stack of cards, did they fit in there just right? Does your chipboard circles fit in the chipboard circle spots? Is
yep.
The exact right size.
And the second thing I get is a press sheet printed at the actual quality of the components. The high quality print, but not cut or punched or on the exact material. It's just a high quality print. And the third thing I get, I make it from the manufacturer, is what's printed on like a color printer, like a color copier, and then glued onto the components or assembled, so I can see so lower quality color printing, more like the print on demand service. Actually, even worse than that, on the components. I get actually these 3 pieces to kind of proof the game.
And this will differ significantly by manufacturer,
yes.
too.
Not all manufacturers will do this.
And some might combine them, too. They might actually take the kind of white copy that you described that has the white versions of the pieces, and then they will use just a printer, a laser printer, just print copies of your cards and kind of paste them on the cards, and so they'll kind of combine some of them. Some won't give you any unless you ask for it, or some, even if you ask for them, they're gonna be very hesitant to do that or charge you for it. They might charge you $200 for a white copy of the game.
Yep.
So that's one question to ask if you're shopping around for manufacturers.
Okay. How do I know? We've seen the both sides now. How do I know to go from print on demand to a manufacturer? How do I know when that magic
quantity is going to be the primary determining factor? How many copies of your game are you printing?
If I haven't made a game yet, if I haven't sold a game yet, how do I know? How do I know how much is going to sell?
Start with print on demand then. So start with print on demand. You make your files, maybe you print yourself on your own printer, and you play test it and you get ready. And then so past the paint, I don't want to deal with China. I don't want to be on the phone with China. I don't want to deal with all of that in the print sample. That's why I wanted to go through a publisher, because they're going to do all that work for me, all the fulfillment and the shipping and the printing and the pre-press production of the files. So I didn't have to do work. So I made a working copy of the game with artwork, and that I wanted to show to publishers. And so I used a print-on-demand service to make effectively demo copies of the game, so they could actually see it and play it. As I had in the past, I did sent potential publishers a print-and-play file or a PDF file, but that assumes that they're going to print it out, cut it up, assemble it themselves, play it, get back to you. Whereas if I hand them a finished copy of the game that looks pretty darn good, like a finished game, from a print-on-demand service, then that's much more likely that they will look at that
Yeah.
and actually take a crack at, oh yeah, we like this game, let's contact this guy and we'll do that one.
It's so hard to get time from a publisher for them to actually
Yes.
play your game that you do not want any barriers that will stop them from doing it. So don't give them a print and play. They're never going to play it unless they're maybe like a really small publisher.
Unless they're really dedicated.
Or if they're, maybe if they like saw your game played at a con or something and they really, really are interested in possibly publishing it. But otherwise, just give
I
them...
printed 13 copies of Pass the Paint and 3 copies of Secret Society, and I made 2 copies of Secret Salvage based on how many I expected to give out to publishers when I was meeting with them. And then I used up all my copies of Secret Society. I wish I had made a 4th copy.
Talking about BGG Con.
At BGG Con, yeah.
Yep.
I used up one of my copies of Secret Salvage. That one had a lot of components. It was less appealing to different publishers. And then I used up 10 of my 13 copies of Pass the Paint.
So Jeremy could play a game, with a publisher, possibly.
Yep.
And then
I did.
And then he could have his backpack next to him and just pull a game out and be like, if they seem somewhat interested, and be like, hey, do you want a game to take home with you? And maybe play it again. And
that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. And then, oh yeah, we like this, we'll take it. And it's like, nah, it's okay. Well, then I know they're going to pass. But the fact that I had a copy to give them made my odds much better of going further with it. So now they're going to take it back and play it, versus like, well, we got this print and play from this guy, and we got a sell sheet from this guy, and we had this kind of handmade sloppy copy from this other guy. Oh, we have this really nice one from this guy. Let's do this one. This one looks very appealing. I have that curve appeal.
Yeah, all that work's done for them. And it's sort of like reporters. You write your own story and hand it off to them, they're going to print it. It's like, I don't have to do anything. That's amazing.
But I know as a publisher, I've played prototypes too, where I've been like, wow, that's a pretty fun game. But then that's it. And then I go leave, and I might even think about it again the next day, and I might be like, that was a really fun game. I wish I kind of knew a little bit more about it, and I might contact someone, but if they would have given me a game to take home, then I would have been like, all right, cool, and then I'll think more about it. I'll have it on my game shelf, and be like, hey, let's pull this game out and play it, or I'll call people over, let's do a game night, play this game. So it's just removing one of those barriers, between a designer and a publisher.
All right, once again, I'm going to wrap us up right there. We're going to do another part 3, just like we've done before. I'm Richard New, and I'm here with Jeremy Commander and Brian Hink. You can contact us at theforbiddenlimb@gmail.com, or go to the website at theforbiddenlimb.com, or leave a YouTube suggestion if you'd like. Anything that you guys would like to talk about. This discussion that we've had for this week and last week have been based on a suggestion from a listener. So we hope to be able to answer your questions in the future as well. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.